Welcome to Amazing Indiana Music Stories.
Herman, I knew you grew up in the Indiana Avenue neighborhood. Tell us a little bit about the area you grew up and your exposure to the music that was happening in the neighborhood.
Well, Lockefield was where my grandmother lived, and most of my family, both sides. And so in those days, people, when they moved out, they didn't move very far from where they grew up. And my parents, they built a home from the ground up, sponsored by the Front House Projects on 13th Street. So I lived right around the corner from Addicts, and we would walk down to the avenue to go to the theater. That was basically the only reason for the little kids to go down to the avenue. Otherwise, we were on the other end visiting our relatives. There was some supermarkets that my mother would go to every now and then for specialty items. But we didn't really do any entertaining as a youth over there. I delivered papers. I was a paper boy. I made a lot of money for a kid. At 8 years old, I started carrying papers.
You had inspiration to pursue music in your family. Your cousin, Reverend Dennis H. Freeman, became a very prominent figure in gospel music. He led choirs, made recordings, wrote a lot of music. Tell me about your cousin Dennis and how his work influenced your decision to pursue music.
Well, my cousin Dennis, as long as I could remember, was playing keyboards, and he's 9 years older than me. But as a teenager, he had an organ, a piano. He had two organs and a piano in his bedroom. He had a huge bedroom. I spent a lot of time with him because he was almost my big brother. So I was there when he was practicing with the choirs. I mean, he was conducting a choir when he was 14, 15 years old. He would, I watch him practice. He had a conductor stick, and he'd play symphony music, and he'd practice. And so I'd stand right next to him. And I would do the same. I would mimic him. But then when it came to he wanted to teach me how to play. And I have a handicap with my appendages on my hands. And one finger is not able to be used, and it was too much of a stressful thing for me, so I chose not to go that route. But I think it gave me an uncanny way of doing music in my head, because I could see the keyboard up close and personal. And even further down the road, when I had my own band, I could tell when somebody's off key, and then I could tell them how to correct it. I said, you need to tune that one right there, that string, and I'll be correct. But he inspired me in the fact that everybody sounded good. All his music was precise, and he was having fun. He was gone all the time on Sunday. You couldn't find him on Sunday because he was running from church to church. He'd play. He'd do Sunday school with this church, and then he'd do the Bible study, and then come back and do evening service. So he was running all day. Plus, he got paid.
In the music world, you're known for your group, Words of Wisdom, a singing group. When did you first start singing yourself?
You mean in my group?
No, just in general. When did you, as a young person, when did you start singing and start thinking about
in grade school
becoming a singer? Yeah.
In grade school, well, at church. Everybody in my family was in the church choir. Everybody. Grandma, Mama, Daddy, Uncle Tom, or everybody. So the kids were either up under the Dennis's legs at the organ, and Dennis on the organ. Or we were sitting down in front of our parents in the pews, the choir pews. But we were fortunate that we had a big church, with the old one and the new one. But mainly in the choir church. So naturally, when we went to school, you joined a choir, and the teachers knew that you could sing because they knew our parents. The community was very tight, so most of the teachers frequented all the churches, and occasionally played there for extra money. So yeah, church and school, and grade school, I was really doing very well, along with a couple of other friends of mine. And I thought about singing then. And then, the closer I got to junior high, my interest in the music changed. Radio was getting more and more. But as far as actually performing myself, the last time, that was when I didn't do it in high school. I did it in junior high until the ninth grade. Mm-hmm.
You said you were listening to the radio. I know you've told me you liked the Beatles, you listened to Motown. What kind of things were you attracted to on the radio?
Vocal music. I'll say the first group that I really fell in love with was the Impressions. And the next was the Beatles. They came about the same time. Because Curtis Mayfield was a child star, so he was a teenager. So that made me want to have an interest. He's still a teenager, and he's got a Grammy and making all this money. But I wasn't serious about it.
I want to ask you about another person in your life. We talked about your cousin Dennis, but another person in your life who inspired you as a young person. You got married at a young age, right?
Yeah.
And your mother-in-law was Flo Garvin, who was a pianist and vocalist. And she was a nightclub entertainer in Indianapolis for decades. She started on Indiana Avenue, and then by the 1950s and 60s, she was playing in, the main nightclubs in the city, like the Embers, where a lot of celebrities would go and perform. Tell me about your relationship with Flo Garvin. What kind of person was she like, and how did she inspire you?
Well, she inspired me by great performances. She really did not encourage what I dragged her daughter into. But she would let me come to her performances with her daughter. This is we were 14 and 15 years old. But that was because she didn't dictate, but she knew her daughter was talented, and she knew I sang. So it was a way of giving us a preview of what she did for a living. And she met a lot of important people. And I liked that because it was mostly bar. And it was kind of elegant because of the way she played the piano and was up close and personal. And but then the television was big because my parents made sure I had a television by the time I got to kindergarten. And there were Saturday morning programs that was dedicated to rock and roll. And you saw they had kids programs long before Bandstand, Shindig, Hullabaloo, and some of these programs with white bands. It's all white bands. It wasn't really any black bands. Paul Revere and the Raiders. They was tough. They was bad. And then Freddie and it was a lot of funny names.
Freddie and the Dreamers.
Yeah. But because I was in a choir, I was interested in a group. I wasn't interested in being, and plus I wasn't an upfront singer. I harmonized. Harmony was my specialty. I never had a lead voice. So yeah, Flo, and then a lot of important artists would visit her home, and I would get to see them. I said, wow, she gets to see famous people like this. Like the names I mentioned probably wouldn't mean anything. Earl Garner, Christine Jorgensen, Chris Kreskin, the four freshmen. What was the blind keyboard player's name?
Earl Grandi.
Earl Grandi. Did I say Grant Green? I mean, some I couldn't remember because she would invite them. They'd come to watch her, and then afterwards they would go to her house for after performance to drink, or she'd have dinner. So that made me. I like that life. And but as we got into it, Mom wasn't too happy about it because she said, "Oh, they're serious. They're gonna try to do what I did." But you know.
Yeah, you really got to see professional musicians up close and personal because of Flo's relationship with these artists.
And yeah, she was always gone. She did a lot of cruise ships, so she would be gone weeks at a time. So her kids kind of suffered, not only weeks, months, you know. I think one time she did a 6-month tour, and Dad was it. He was running the whole house. That can make opportunities for kids to get in trouble, you know.
Yeah. I want to come back to Flo later, okay, but I want to move on to your entry point into the local music scene. I remember you telling me that one of the first local bands you saw, one of the first local soul bands you saw was Rodney Stepp and the Diplomats. Is that right? Tell me about when you got interested in some of the local R&B and soul music that was happening in Indianapolis.
You hit it right on the head. That was it. Because everybody, I wasn't involved in Addicts music program, but everybody knew I sang in grade school and junior high. So one of my buddies that was a vocalist too, and he played the instrument at Addicts too, but he didn't pursue that. He was an athlete, and that's what kept me from taking music. I was an athlete. So he said, Butch, you got to come back and see what's going on in the neighborhood. I said, what is it? He said, I'm not going to tell you. You got to come and see. So I went home. We scheduled for me to come home on the weekend. He said, I said, what is it you want? And he walked me over to he still hadn't told me anything. Walked me over to Bobby Gayhart's house. That was one of the places that they rehearsed. And I heard all this music, and I walked in the door, and they are all standing there. 4 horns. I fell in love with that. 4 horns, 2 bass players. It was also popular to have 2 guitar players. But just the huge sound. The only thing was missing was singing. My mind started working. I said, wow, that's the only thing missing, this voice or something. I'll get them together. And that's what I did. I put a group together. It took me, I guess it took me really about 2.5 years. And then we started doing performances. And you needed a band. Well, my second wife, Rosa, who was also in the group, her mother was a pianist for Christmas Addicts. And she knew all these guys. They were her students, because you didn't just play one instrument at Addicts. Just about all these guys, most of them could play 3 or 4 instruments. So she got the job for them to back us up. And because 2 of her daughters were in the group as well. And they learned our material. And because I said, one day they can back us up. And it came to happen.
Tell us about the early version of your group, Words of Wisdom. We talked about Flo Garvin, her daughter, who was your wife at the time, Karen Garvin, was in the group, right? Tell us about the original Words of Wisdom group.
The original group was Ricky Clark. Well, first of all, Gary Amos's brother was teaching us material to make a record.
He was your bass player, Gary Amos.
Gary Amos,
and his brother
yeah.
was Charles Moose Amos, who's
Yeah.
a songwriter and arranger.
Yes, and but main thing we got tired of getting a band to learn our material, so we need to get our own band. So that's what we pursued to do. But the first singers was my girlfriend and I got married. That's Flo's daughter. And before meeting them even, I grew up with the Hart sisters. Our families were very close. And they were a singing family, just like the Hampton family. They did concerts, the whole family. So I approached them, and then I got hit from two sides. Mrs. Hart knew Robert Vaughn. He was the lead vocalist. And I was a manager of a burger chef at the time. And one of my cashier's boyfriend was a vocalist. And he came to the house, and then they were reunited. So it was 3 girls and 2 guys. Myself, Robert Vaughn, Rosa Lunderman, Rosa Hart, and Mabel Hart, and Karen Garvin.
You mentioned getting your band together, the Truth Band. At that time, correct me if I'm wrong, but the singing groups and the bands were 2 distinct things. It wasn't until locally groups like Amnesty came out that the singing groups and the bands merged. And nationally, maybe you saw that with like Sly and the Family Stone and some of the groups of that era. Is that right? When you started, the singing groups and the bands were just 2 different things. They weren't often combined. Is that correct?
Correct.
In R&B music, yeah.
Right, and that's what changed, because, okay, when R&B music, there was just one singer,
Yeah.
James Brown. Well, then everybody said, well, let's get some girls. And so girls groups got popular, and that gave fuel to Barry Gordy. That's where his mind was going. He was hearing the vocals because he was in the instrumental age. So he had a vision. So that's what inspired me to have something a little different.
And tell us about this group, the Truth Band. You mentioned Gary Amos was the bass player. Tell us about some of the other folks in this band.
Now, when it came to the band, Ricky's wife was good friends up with a girl across the road or something, next door, whatever. And her husband played drums, and he also happened to be a cameraman for Channel 13. And they became, well, he went and got him and said, hey, would you be interested? And I don't remember how Gary knew. I think Moose knew who I was talking about, the drummer, Leroy. Yeah,
Leroy
she knew
Seeds.
Leroy. So, but Leroy was a rock drummer. He'd been playing with white guys, but we made it work. Yeah, so Gary on bass, and Gary had worked with his father his brother since a very young age. So he was, at 15, he was expert. So then, Gary, and Clicky, Kevin Franklin. He lived down the road from the Hart Girls. Small world. And he also had played little drums with their brother, John. John had a knack for drums. In fact, he was trying to be in the Man-Child. But anyway, we went and got Kevin. And it was Kevin, Leroy, Gary, and then we needed a keyboard player. And but where did we get that guy? I don't remember how we found him. A little boy named Eric. And he had a B2, and we got him. And then there was a secret in rhythm. I mean, one of the groups that inspired me was Amnesty. Well, that's when I noticed how they sounded with Raphael. Raphael was a conga player. I said, got to have some congas. So I was going to top it all off. I don't know how we found him. His name was Jared. You the one that told me what his name was?
I can't remember what it is now, but yeah, I found some information.
Anyway, he played congas and he played harmonica. And I said, what harmonica is it? Because War was a big group and they had a harmonica player. And he was a white guy too. And this guy's hair was down to here. He was blonde, had a graphical mustache, wore construction boots and played. Oh, he was perfect. He was our novelty instrumentalist, and he was a good guy. And he stayed with us for a while, and then as we moved on, I think he moved on. He changed his life because he didn't have to really do too much. Yeah.
You mentioned Ricky, and you're talking about the group's manager, Ricky Clark. This man played an important role in your group. He was a very popular radio DJ at WTLC, which was the first black radio station in Indianapolis. I think it was the first stereo station, too. They came on in like 69, 68, somewhere around there. Ricky was part of this popular radio station, WTLC. Tell me how important he was in kind of helping the group get some attention here locally, get gigs. What was his role with your band, Words of Wisdom?
Actually, it was my thinking. I said, well, now we need somebody. We need a manager. I wasn't trying to pretend like I knew everything, but I did know quite a bit. But we needed a manager because we needed to get on the radio. What I really meant was we needed a manager, somebody in that building. We approached Spider-Man first. It's because Spider-Man had put out a record and caught a lot of flack behind it. In fact, at the time, it was a conflict of interest for a jock to have a product on the market. So I went to Ricky, and I asked Ricky, Ricky, would you be our manager? He said, well, because Ricky used to play something, and he dabbled in it, but he said, I really don't have much experience at managing, but I'd like to try. And he took the reins, and he did the best thing. He aligned himself with experts out in the performance realm. All of the teachers and union members lived right down the street anyway. Larry Liggett, Jimmy Cole, we knew all of them. So they were regular people in my house. When we had rehearsal, it was nothing for Jimmy Cole to come walking in or Larry Liggett, because they were tutoring us because of Ricky and because we had good musicians and because they knew that we would pay them. These guys were stewards and they collected dues. So they would come around to you, you got a gig, okay? And here they show up, hey, get the money. So he also, well, mainly that was it, the radio portion. And then he knew the clubs. I wasn't a club person. He knew the club owners. And then also Ricky got interested in police work. And he started doing his own research. He's doing ride-alongs with policemen and things. So he started, it might have been the reason he was doing it was to learn the club owners. I don't know. But he knew everybody. Then he also hired a talent agency, Carousel Productions. Can't think of the boy's name. He'd be mad at me if I you remember his name? But anyway, pretty boy, blonde hair, down to here, he's bald-headed now. But he had all the military bases and made a lot of money working for him.
bands used to tour a circuit of military bases.
Yes,
right?
and everybody that was good worked for. Almost remember.
If you think of it, shout it out.
Everybody worked for him.
You mentioned that Ricky Clark helped you get gigs at the clubs, that you weren't a club person. Your group, Words of Wisdom, played at a lot of the clubs here in Indianapolis. You played at the In Crowd, you played at Function Junction, you played at the Machine Club. Tell us about some of the clubs in Indianapolis at that time. What do you remember about the club scene in the 70s?
Well, the main clubs that we performed in, like you said, the Function Junction. A lot of people don't know, but Bob Nettlelecki used to own a club. It was a big club.
Netto's.
And it was called Netto's. We worked for him a lot. We worked for the In Crowd, big man. We worked for the End Zone. Now the End Zone and the Function Junction were the same owners. And then let's see who else. Where else we play in the city? We didn't play in Indianapolis too much. We stuck with mainly the military bases, especially when you get a record out. You had to hit the military bases because that was how you say it, getting your audience. That's how you promoted your sound, because all these people live different places. Which I have to say, that's a lot of reason for the nostalgic notoriety we're getting now, because those people, they still remember. And we forget that when they were in Vietnam, they was playing our music, listening to it. So
who were some of your favorite local bands to watch at that time in the 70s? Did you have favorite groups then?
Evan Bread and the Funk Campaign, Amnesty. Those are my pets.
Yeah. I want to ask about one of the big shows Words of Wisdom played. I think it was around maybe 1974. I think this event was part of Black Expo. You played at the Coliseum at the Indiana State Fairgrounds. You mentioned Curtis Mayfield had been your hero as a young person. This concert was called the Superfly Revue. It was when the movie Superfly was very popular. Curtis Mayfield was the headline act. I believe the actor Ron O'Neal, who was in the film, was scheduled to appear at the concert.
The woman that was starring in the movie, she was there too.
This was a big deal.
Yes.
One of Babyface's early groups also played on that bill. Tell us what you remember about that concert. I think the OJs played as well. Tell us what you remember about that show.
Well, it was sold out. It was packed. And it was a good time that night. They held the show. It started late because they were waiting for the original headliners. Was supposed to be Harold Melvin and the Blue Notes. Well, there was a snowstorm. I think it was a snowstorm, rainstorm or something. Canceled their flight and they couldn't make it. But they recorded for the same record company. And back in those days, what you call a promotional gig, the record company would get them a gig at lesser price. We were a smaller market. So we had a lot of new groups that used to come here, and this was one of them. So they just said, oh, OJ's. And in fact, they came and one of their members wasn't there, but they still put on a show. They still used the same band. That showed it showed me some things, how record companies handle their business, because they went on, they skipped on without a beat. I mean, they didn't skip a beat, But I never performed before a crowd that large at that time. And I don't think I've been in big crowds since, but that one, it was really something. Maybe because it was my first big one, but Ricky Clark was very showmanship minded, and he grabbed hold of the light men, and he grabbed the light and spotlights and showed all them what to do, because my group the girls had hooded outfits. It was elaborately made, but a jacket that went over these outfits with a hood on it. So he had us and the girls just put our backs to the audience, and he said, don't turn around till the lights come on. And we turned around, and we were standing there, and then the band started playing, and all of a sudden, Ricky turned them lights, and all the lights, well, first the lights were swirling all around, like the fairgrounds, when they had the fair, and then bam, there we were. It was like we just appeared, and the crowd went crazy. I was hooked. I had to go on the road for good, and it happened again.
Yeah, yeah. Around that same time, you made your first record with the Words of Wisdom for Lamp Records here in Indianapolis. What do you remember about that? How did that come about?
Well, we knew about that time we needed a record. That was our goal. And we had started learning material. Then we had to start saving money to do it. Well, Ricky Clark was a Channel 20 supporter, and I found out later that it was Channel 20, but I didn't know where it was. But he had had awarded something or won something, but it gave the compensation was studio time in professional studio. So we put our money with that, and we went to the studio. And man, I was hooked on that too. Studio was the most fun and learning experience that anybody, if you never become an artist, just to get the education of how it's done and to do it and then to hear it and say, wow. It's like you heard a lot of guys that had good material and never got released. And you said, wow, why didn't they put that out? Because we were fortunate living here in Indianapolis. We got exposed to most of the good.
All of the music your group recorded, Words of Wisdom, was written and arranged by Charles Moose Amos, who is the brother of your bass player, Gary Amos. Tell me about Moose, his relationship with the group. He wasn't a member of the band. Tell me about your relationship with Moose and what he contributed to the group and his significance in the Indianapolis music scene.
Moose was everybody's big brother. He was a big guy, and he was always singing. He was always singing and writing songs, and he was always happy. But he was very intense when he was teaching you a song. We learned our songs. Some people that a band gets together and they just start playing. No, we learned off the keyboard. This is your part, this is your part. These are the chords. So sometimes all you had to do was hit the chord and we knew what to do. Hit the chord and what to do. Hit the chord and what to do. They do the same thing now, but it makes writing a song easier. Yeah, the person that produced it, the person that wrote it, if they are good at orchestrating, that helps, because down time and everything.
Tell me about Moose.
Moose, oh yeah, Moose. Moose was so wrapped up in his music that he was like in the Twilight Zone, walking around his music in his head all the time. And like most of us, we experimented with drugs and things, but people seem to misunderstand Moose. They thought he was a dummy, but he wasn't a dummy. He was just smart. He was somewhere else, and so we identified a lot, because I was writing songs. So he would kind of show me. I look at the words he's got, and he never helped me with my songs, but he would give me verbal advice, and he would take me aside from the rest of them, and show me a few things. He's a good guy, all around good guy, and he got taken advantage of, I think.
You toured quite a bit with Words of Wisdom. Tell us about some of the groups you were playing with. You played with some pretty famous musicians.
Oh yes, the further south we went, the better it was. Everybody toured the south, and everybody still toured the same rooms, because unbeknown to a lot of people, the big star player a 4,000 seating room one night and then play a 500 seating room the next night because they didn't turn any money down. And a lot of places were exclusive, private places, and they paid a little more or brought the money up, even though there wasn't that many people. But let's see, let me start with Jackie Moore. Jackie Moore, she was an East Coast star. I'm not sure where she was from, but she one of the first single vocalist artists of the old days. She had a song out called Precious Precious, and she didn't have a band, and she would hire us to, because she had vocals on her record. So we were very valuable because we had singers and a band. So we could duplicate the whole record so it would almost sound just like the record. So we got a lot of jobs that way. One with her, and then what's that big boy's name?
Solomon Burke.
King Solomon Burke. Woo-wee. Yeah, he was something. He was something.
You're leaving out one of the big ones, though.
Oh, yeah, I'm coming.
Okay.
I'm going to get the little ones first. And then Betty Swan, another female artist, guitarist. And then the big boy, James Brown. Played with Les McCann as well. But James Brown was an experience. Big operation. All the good things you heard about him was true, and all the bad things you heard about him was true too. But he was very, very talented at an early age, and he was like Moose, I think. And he could hear all the music in his head. And when you see the documentaries, you would gather that was the case. He could hear it. And do this, and he could almost play an instrument with his mouth and tell them exactly what to play. But he was very separatist. He didn't mingle with us. Hey, how you doing? Even though he was paying us. And unfortunately, he fired us. We did 3 dates with him. We did more than that. See, Selma, Knoxville. There's a Knoxville, Tennessee, Knoxville, someplace in Florida. We did about 4 gigs with him. And we were supposed to go to Florida. Was it Florida? Yeah. And he fired us because we did too many encores. The crowd liked us, and they kept on cheering, and we kept on coming back out. Wrong. The next day we was told we were fired. Yeah.
I have to mention that you also wrote a couple songs for Funk Incorporated.
Yes.
It appeared on their final album, Price to Sell, the final album by the original group. Tell me about that.
Bobby was a good friend of mine. We had a party club with other entertainers and athletes because he was a celebrity. So football players from the Indianapolis Capitals, my band, Buzzards band would be over there. Not the band, but individuals. Matthew Watson, Doo-Doo. Oh, they don't know Doo-Doo. His name is Henry Miles, but they called him Doo-Doo. But he's gone too. But Bobby was a real colorful guy, and he surrounded himself with good musicians, and he had a very good record company. For what the music that they were doing, they were with the right company because they were very strong in jazz, and they were a sister group of Prestige. This was Fantasy label, and Fantasy backed a lot of new artists. They were shifting from straight up jazz and started doing a little more R&B music, and that was it was a good experience. He needed 2 songs. He was short 2 songs, because he was holding out for another deal, and they wouldn't give him one. They said, "Well, you better get this music out, or we ain't gonna do that." I think it was over Steve Weekly getting ready to quit. Steve Weekly was not on that album, and I think he had already quit, and the record company was not happy with it. So I went over there to his house, and Steve and we showed him the material, and he pulled out his little tape recorder, and he had to have it in California, I think, in 48 hours. So he taped it and then flew on out there and had some other people handle the production. It didn't sound anything like he said what they recorded when they went out there. It didn't sound like it at all, but that was it.
As we wrap up, I want you to reflect on all the music you've made over the years. So much of this has come back in different ways. The records you made for Lamp have been reissued. The final single your group made has been reissued overseas. Some of the songs you wrote have been sampled by groups like A Tribe Called Quest. What do you make of that? All this has come back. Look back on your career. What are your thoughts and your thoughts on the longevity of the music?
I'm just thankful that people liked it. That's the whole purpose. You want somebody else to like it. You want somebody else to prove your work. Did I do a good job on that? Did I do? They liked it, and to hear it on the radio, just to hear it on the radio, it put you on cloud nine. It was like food. It was like getting high. It was better than anything you could think of, and people that have the passion don't worry about the money. Now that we're here and we're happy. Ain't none of us mad, because now we know that somebody really knew who we were.
Any final thoughts you want to share? Anything that we didn't ask that you want to tell people?
Well, I'm continuing in the business. This has opened a new door for me, and I'm going through it, and I'm going to try to leave something to help the people that don't know, that need to know, if they want to go into the touring and recording business. You can't just learn how to play. It's a lot more to it. And you need support from your people. That's one reason I'm forming this organization. We had support from the community. Our parents helped us buy equipment. The equipment was available. If it wasn't for the community or the parents, even parents that couldn't afford it, like my boy wants to play, these kids don't have that now. Their parents are barely taking care of themselves. So that's what I want to do, is to give an outlet for those that have learned something and say, well, hey, now let's take it to another level. I can teach you how to do this, and then you could do it yourself. And that's my goal.
And tell us what the name of that organization is.
You won't believe it. Naptown Review Tours Limited.
Yeah.
And that's what it is. We're specializing in showing people how to make a living in music. And if you're not touring, you're not going to make any money unless you're in radio or television. And there's a way to go on the road. You have to not accept less. That's all it is. You accept less, you get less.
Thank you, Herman, for being here and sharing your story.
Okay, it's
Thank
fun.
you.